5 years ago, I did a video about the golden Canon grid and shared the grid as a freebie, and it blew up. And so Mason Thompson said, would love to see some examples of you going from a blank canvas to the final product using this grid. So that's what we'll do today. I'll share 4 steps to design a website with the golden Canon grid from scratch. So let's go. Hello my friends, if you're new to this channel and you want to stay up to date with my latest videos covering advanced web design and business skills, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notifications. Okay, so this is going to be the end result, and I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the process of how I got to that. So the first step is to set up the grid, okay? And so to do that, let's pretend that we're going to do a website for a photographer. I don't know, I like websites for photographers. And one of the first things that you want to do is just install the freebie, the Figma file as an asset and publish it as a library. Go to assets and then click here on, that icon there and just publish the file as a library, and then you can use it to access it here. So basically you go again to assets in your file that you're going to be using. You click on that link, on that, that icon, sorry. So assets, click on that icon, and then you enable that library on this file or on any file that you want to access it from. And so that way you will have you will have on this side the assets, right? The desktop, tablet, and mobile versions of the golden Canon grid. So now you just drop the the symbol on the artboard, and then you shrink it to make it coincide with the size of the artboard. So remember that you can just shrink it to any size and it will just work perfectly fine. And one thing I did is I selected a 440 pixel artboard by 900, which is a typical desktop size, and it's also a multiple of 10, so that I can do also a small grid like you see here of 10 pixels to give some very small spacings. So now the grid, the golden Canon grid, is going to help us with the main big elements and their sizing and alignments, and then the small 10 pixel grid is going to help us with smaller sizings and paddings. Okay, so once I have that set, the second step is to set the margins and design the navigation of the website, because that's going to be the structural elements that are going to be repeating throughout the whole page. So we want to design them first and have that set and don't touch it anymore, so that we can know what spacing is left to be used, right, on our layouts. So let's start there, and basically I'm gonna just grab all the elements that I have pre-prepared, right? The logo, and I'm gonna put the the text here, right? Instagram, YouTube, about, albums, and I'm gonna just add there a copyright information just for the sake of it. And you can see that I've prepared a margin here, right? And so the idea is that we are using margins to set the navigation. We're not using the golden Canon grid for that, okay? So bear that in mind. That's something that I always do. Just use margins, and in this case I used 60 pixel margins to have like a quite nice white space around the frame, so it sits nice and clean on the layout. Okay, so now that we have set the margins and the foundation for the structure of the website, now we're gonna start playing with the layout. And bear in mind, you can change the positioning of the elements, but of the navigation afterwards, once you start playing with the layout. But we're just laying this like randomly at the beginning, just to have like an idea that's where most of the things are gonna be sitting. Okay, so let's start playing with layout, which is step number 3. So basically I threw in the first image and the title for the first album, and I said, let's try with a dark background so that we can use, white or an off-white basically. And you can see that I'm color picking the colors from the images, by the way. So the text, I'm selecting, first I selected white, but then I said, no, I'm going to pick a color from the image. And so that's when I selected that one, okay? And so now I also did a whispers in italic because I love the italic of Castellan. And another thing I did is I adjusted a little bit the letter spacing here of the title. One thing I want to mention is that the real process for this takes a lot of iterations until you arrive to the layout that you like. For example, you can see here another example of an iteration process. This is a real life process, right? You just duplicate things and start iterating on the layout and playing around. And that's what I did with this one as well. So for example, I started with this one, and then I started moving forward, playing around, duplicating, playing around, moving, deleting stuff, right? So it takes a lot of iteration to come to these conclusions, right? Let's continue laying the elements. So a paragraph, a CTA, and then I did a secondary version of that so that, the main CTA is going to be see the album, but the book your session CTA is going to follow us throughout the whole page. So we don't want that to be so prominent, right? We want it to be on a secondary level. So playing around with the position of the CTA and the alignments, you can see that now I'm refining things. So maybe, for example, I'm making the CTA and the navigation item coincide on the left edge. So now what I want to do is I want to add the pagination stuff, right? Arrows, numbers, and create a pagination, balance it here. So we're gonna just use the same padding between the navigation item and the title, right? So 203, we make it coincide in 201, both top and bottom, and that's it, right? And the second step on playing with layout, is to start scaling the website. So now I'm gonna do a different layout for the second album, okay? And so I'm gonna do a different layout for each album on this website, right? Just to give it a little bit more variability. And for example, in this case, just the images change, the text position and everything else stays the same. I'm just changing the image position, okay? And here, when I put the image on the right, I realized that that CTA needed to have a solid background color. So that's why you want to scale things, just to make sure that it works in different use cases, okay? So then I decided, okay, I'm going to use a background fill for the main CTA, the secondary CTA that follows on the navigation, so that if there's something on the background of the CTA, it's not interfering in the readability. So now I can turn on the grid and I can start doing small adjustments, right? So for example, I can push the title to that edge so that it coincides with the grid. I can also resize the images with the use of the edges of the grid to make them coincide like so. And one thing that I think it was an interesting conclusion I came to with this particular image is I didn't like any of the edges that I was using. So what I did is I made a 30 pixel padding on the right and the bottom, as you can see here, right? So on the left and the top, they coincide with the grid, but then on the right and the bottom, they have a 30 pixel padding. So you can also do that. Just bear that in mind. So now, I play around a little bit more with the paddings. I just balanced there again the pagination, and I went to the second one and did the same process. And here, for example, to decide the size of that image and the alignment, what I did is I wanted to do something that was balanced. So I did 60 pixels. That was already there because there was 60 pixels for the top, in the margin, sorry. So I did 60 pixels below, and then marked an edge there, like so, and then made the other image coincide with that edge as well. Basically, I resized it to coincide with this, with this crossing. So you can do that where two edges cross. You can mark a vertical or a horizontal edge. So I used that crossing to resize this image, and I also resized this one with the grid. And basically you can do that with a 3, and any layout that you create. And so that's it, my friends. That's how you use the Golden Canon grid to design a website in 4 steps. So first step, set up the grid. Second step, set the margins and the design navigation. And the third step, you play with the layout. And the fourth step, you turn on the grid to make the final adjustments. And remember this, my friend. A fancy camera doesn't make you a great photographer, and a fancy grid doesn't make you a great designer. What will make a difference in the results is not the tool, but your skill level. So don't get too hung up on the grid itself. Just play around freely first and then use the grid afterwards to adjust and create consistency. If you learned something, give this video a like, and remember to subscribe and enable notifications. If you want to download this grid and also join thousands of students in learning 5 secrets to design beautiful websites with the Golden Canon grid, then check out my free Golden Canon grid course for web designers. I'll leave the link in the description. And if you're ready to pick your web design skills and learn how to monetize them so you can have more freedom to do the things that you love, then click the link below to apply to my signature mentorship program called the Web Design Masterclass. I will schedule a call with you so we can chat and decide if the program is the right fit for you. And hey, if you don't get to the results that you saw in this video on your first try, don't get discouraged. I've been designing websites for 12 years or more than that, so give yourself some grace and keep practicing. You got this, my friend. Let's bridge the gap 1 pixel at a time. I'll see you in the next one.